My name is Shan Lohr. I work with the Field Crop Development Center at Olds College. We work to develop barley and triticale lines for the malting, feed, and forage industry. We're trying to select the best of the best. So we are taking 2 lines and we're trying to make a new variety that's equal to or better than what's on the market right now. These lines might come from other research programs around the world, barley and triticale research programs, or we might actually go to our own seed bank and pull out some promising lines to cross. So in the summertime we have the crossing sheds that we're in right now, and we also have the field that we cross in. In the winter time, or the fall-winter season, we can do 2 rounds of crossing within our growth facilities. We cross about 50 days post-planting for barley and about 60 days post-planting for triticale. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to find a plant that is 2 to 3 days pre-pollination, so we don't want it to pollinate. It's important to realize that barley and triticale are self-pollinating crops, so it has the male and female structures within the same floral structure. So if we want to introduce new genes or new traits into these new improved varieties, we have to make sure that we interrupt that self-pollinating process by taking out the anthers while they're still immature or green, just before the female, so 2 to 3 days before the female is responsive to the pollen. So since this is a self-pollinating crop, our first step is to remove the anthers. Now in other crops like triticale and 6-row barley, we actually remove some unnecessary florets. But to save us some time, we're going to work on 2-row barley because it's really quick. There's 2 ways that we do this, the emasculation that is. We do an approach method and we do a slit method. The approach method is just basically cutting the floret off, going in, pulling out the anthers. So we'll show you that one first. So we want to remove the anthers. There's always 2 in the folds of the palea, which is the really translucent tissue on the inside of the floret. And there's always 1 on the outside, on the lemma side, which is really the tough green outer side, which has this on it that you can see. So I just need to go in there. So there's 1. Oh geez. And you can see how it's green. Two. And then over in the other palea fold is number 3. So as long as you have 3, generally 3 is the magic number for the anthers. And inside you want to make sure that you're not touching the stigmata or like the ovary, which has 2 stigmata. And then later on you'll see when you pollinate that those stigmata, the stigma, look like 2 big fluffy feathers inside there. So the approach method we use because it's quick and it's easy to learn to get them out. The slit method, what we're trying to do is keep the floral structure pretty much intact so that it creates a nice humid environment for the female structure to develop. So you just sneak in, you know where they are. And then you got to make sure you go to the other palea side. So it's important to get all 3 anthers because you don't want this plant to self-pollinate itself. You want to have control over who's getting, which pollen the female structure is going to be fertilized by. So once you're all done emasculating it, if it's a really dry environment, you may want to give the female a little mist with some water out of a spray bottle. It can be any type of spray bottle. That just helps increase the humidity in there, and the female responds well if it's in a humid environment. So we want to prevent this plant from being pollinated by anybody else around. So we're going to put a crossing paper on here. It's kind of a special type of crossing paper. It can get wet and not deteriorate. It's got a little bit of actual cloth material in it. So it's like a linen paper. And we just close it up, and then in 2 to 3, we close it up and we write a tag that marks which female we emasculated. So we have the crossing paper on, and we have the top sealed because we don't want any foreign pollen coming in through the top and pollinating this. We want to have complete control over who we pollinate this to because we're taking the best of the best. A cross is done by 2 lines, so we need to find a male plant that has the appropriate genetics that we want to cross into this plant. So this plant here has traits and this female has traits. We're going to combine those traits together to make a superior variety to hopefully release. So you want a plant that's going to be the male, so it's going to be pollinating. So hopefully when we open this up and we cut it, we find yellow anthers, and you should be able to see a little cloud of yellow pollen on a hard surface like your fingernail. And you can almost see them in here, how they're creeping up. So one thing to remember is triticale barley start pollinating from the center, and then they move to the ends. So in the center you'll have anthers that are producing pollen. So you just want to clip off your awns just to get an idea of where those anthers are, because if you clip too low you could lose them. So you just gently reach in the floral structure, pull out the anther. You can see that it's yellow. And if I put it on a hard surface like my fingernail and give it a tap, it produces a little yellow cloud of pollen that looks like that. So we're going to take the yellow anther and put it inside the female floral structure. Pollinate the ovary. It actually pollinates the stigmata, which will then fertilize the ovary. And that's all there is to it. So after 10 days, you can come back to your cross and see if your pollination was successful. And you can see in this one that it was successful. There's seeds up the spike. It's going to take 9 to 13 years of purification and testing before we release this as a variety.